Labyrinth Canyon is a really unique and incredible place. It is a stretch of flat water river where you can get a real wilderness experience.
I think if Labyrinth Canyon could speak, it would ask us to slow down and pay attention. The Green River through Labyrinth Canyon is flat. It's slow. The Wingate cliffs above us were formed more than 200 million years ago. The time scale of this place requires us to slow down if we have any hope of listening to what it has to say.
Labyrinth Canyon is a gem of the American public land system. This is a place that is one of the remaining wild regions in the lower 48. What we're trying to do is maintain that character of this landscape, a place where you can go and experience wild nature as it's always been.
The Green River, the Labyrinth stretch, it gives me like a different sense of place. My first time, it was quiet for a while, but then there was like one point where I was just like, what is that noise? And you're like, oh, it's those OHVs. And I'm like, wow, like did they make it down this far?
In Utah in general, visitation has really exploded. Off-road vehicle use, UTVs, side-by-sides, and you have a really dense network of motorized vehicle routes that impacts vegetation, soils, wildlife, cultural sites, and that's just gotten exacerbated over the years.
The goal is to find balance where we can have great access for motorized trail systems, where we can have great access for camps that have a low impact, for boating, for mountain biking, for hiking. And we have to be really thoughtful about where we provide access for each of those activities because they all have inherent impacts.
This canyon system, Labyrinth, still remains very wild. What we're trying to do is maintain that character of this landscape. We know that the Bureau of Land Management is under pressure from the Trump administration and really at the behest of off-road vehicle groups to open the Labyrinth Canyon corridor to ORV use. What that means is that this backcountry experience, this quiet, this solitude that we've experienced down here would be lost.
So it's a bit of history in terms of how we got here. In 2008, the Bureau of Land Management issued a resource management plan and associated travel management plan that blanketed the Labyrinth Canyon, Gemini Bridges area in more than 1,200 miles of off-road vehicle routes.
And when we're talking about routes, we're not talking about the big graded dirt roads that you see. What we're talking about is the unmaintained 2 tracks through the desert. And this route network, this system was never intentionally developed for the uses that it's seeing now. It was not built with recreational off-road vehicle use in mind. It was the result of mineral exploration where it was legal to literally drive cross-country wherever you wanted. And so 2008 was the first time that the agency actually moved to a system of designated routes and said you have to stay on the routes that are designated. And what may have worked in 1990 or in 2000 or even 2010 doesn't necessarily work today.
A lot of these routes are sort of redundant in that they're multiple routes to the same places. They really didn't look at impacts to cultural sites, wildlife habitat. It really was just taking any route that existed on the ground and designated it for that use. SUA, a number of other environmental groups, sued the BLM. Ultimately, the agency agreed to redo travel management plans in 11 different travel management areas one of those is the Labyrinth Gemini Bridges area.
So in 2023, the Bureau of Land Management issued a decision. They had been working through a process to determine what routes would be open for motorized use. What routes had an important purpose, what went to trailheads, what were high use areas, and looking at the whole landscape and trying to figure out, where do you want to prioritize motorized use and where do you want to sort of preserve the backcountry experience, preserve the wild essence of the landscape. And so as it pertains to Labyrinth Canyon, the BLM closed just under 40 miles of routes that were leading directly into the river corridor.
And the agency still designated 800 plus miles of routes in this relatively small area. That's in addition to the 4,000 miles of routes in this larger Moab area.
There are still thousands of miles of routes that are still available for use. So if the BLM reverses course and changes their decision, then you would suddenly have UTVs, ATVs, Jeeps down in the river system.
You have routes that come down the side canyons, like 10-mile hell roaring along Labyrinth Canyon itself.
When you're on day 3 of your quiet float and you come across some of these routes that are open, you have people driving through riparian vegetation and just having an overall impact on what is and should be a real backcountry wilderness experience.
UTVs, ATVs, these are not sort of your grandpa's Jeep. These vehicles are made to go further, faster than they ever have before, and so they generate a much more significant impact.
If we can't see and understand the values of protecting a place like Labyrinth Canyon, what dignity do we have to protect anything at all? If we can't agree that protecting sacred cultural sites, spring-fed water sources, and desert bighorn sheep habitat is more important than having one more road that we can drive on, then I think as a people, we're losing touch with where we need to boundary ourselves to be respectful of these places that we all love, that we all want to spend time in.
Visiting new spaces, hiking new trails, and just seeing the landscape from a point of view that many people don't get to see. That's a really great privilege. In my culture, when I visit a river, I ask for blessings, I say my prayers, and in return, I give my offering. And I take my time just to take it all in.
Public lands are under attack more than they've ever been. Now is the time more than ever for us to become engaged as stakeholders and as citizens of the planet.
And as much as it's easy to be cynical about decision-making on public lands, the reality is the people who show up make a difference. If you want to see a place like Labyrinth Canyon remain wild and remain quiet and provide these wilderness opportunities, you have to be involved. The time is now to speak up and make sure your voice is heard, because if you don't expect that somebody else is going to.